Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Math with Mr. Douglas, the Math Jedi. Today we're looking at ratios and rates and unit rate. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay everybody, today we are looking at ratio and rate. And basically, this is going to be an introduction to ratios and rates. And it's a good place to start. And if we're going to start somewhere, we should know what everything is, right? So let's start with what a ratio is. So basically, it's when we compare. So we compare two quantities. So basically two amounts. And we compare them using division. So that's what a ratio is. And probably the key part here is we're using division. And there are going to be a couple of different ways that we can be expressing this. So I'm going to kind of go like, ooh, look, moving over there now. So the three different ways, there's three different ways. So this is the first way, as a fraction. So we can do it as a fraction. We can do it using kind of like words. So how you write it is we don't say 3 divided by 4, we say 3 to 4. So that's one way to do it. And we also can use these little colons. So 3 to 4. So when you do see this, those little colons, it means 2. Not the number 2, like T-O, 2. Don't you love the English language? So that's what a ratio is. Now we get into what a rate is then. So isn't a rate sort of the same thing? Well, it is the same thing, but we're comparing two quantities. So again, we're still comparing. So we're still comparing two quantities, so nothing has changed. However, am I spelling that right? Quantities? I'm not spelling that right, am I? I'm not. There shouldn't be an I there. I don't think there is. No, and there's another one, quantities. Wow, this is just not spelled at all right, is it? Here we go. This is how you spell it. You should probably fix the one beside it too. There. Now I'm spelling it right. Look, over there. Change that. There you go. So we're comparing two quantities, but this time they have different units. So we're going to add on some more stuff, so with different units. And that's the key for rates. And the classic kind of example that almost probably every single math teacher uses. So, hey, I should be the same math teacher then, right? Is probably using kilometers per hour. So imagine you're driving a car and I don't know, you're driving pretty slow and you're doing 40 kilometers per hour, per 1 hour, because when we're talking about it, like per 1 hour. So look at that. So we're comparing two different things. We're comparing kilometers and hours. So those are the two units. And notice that we're using division. So if you wanted to write it like a division kind of thing, you write it like this. So it looks a little bit easier. Per 1 hour. So we're looking at ratio and we're looking at rate. And then there's also a special rate. There's a very, very special rate. We should probably talk about this because you're going to see this one. So I have a little star here. Ooh, there we go. The little star. We're not using very many colors here. Where else can we use? Let's use purple, pink. Sure. The star, let's get rid of that star then. Oops, there you go. Star, there we go, is going to be unit rate. So the unit rate is simply when you have a denominator of 1. So your denominator has to be 1. If you look at that example on the right-hand side there, the 40 kilometers per hour, is that a unit rate? Yes, because the denominator is 1. So we're going to go through some different examples, and we're going to go through ratio, rate, and we'll probably hit up some unit rate as well. Let's start off with maybe some one little note. So note. Simplify all your rates. And you want to simplify them just like you would any fraction. So do realize that when you're doing your math, you got to be simplifying your fractions. So you simplify your rates as well. Let's jump into some examples, shall we? Sure, let's go and do it. Let's say, oh, I don't know, Luke's. So here, example. I quite like ratio and ratio, it's kind of fun. So here we go. Luke's X-Wing. What is Luke's X-Wing? It goes really slow. It flies. We're going to say it flies 2.5 kilometers in 5 minutes. So 2.5 kilometers in 5 minutes. So it's going pretty slow. And I just want to know what is the unit rate. So it's important. Kind of read what it says. If I say, what's the unit rates? So remember, unit rate is when your denominator's in 1. So right now, what is it kind of looking like? So if I wanted to kind of write it out, it's probably as you're probably kind of thinking about it in your head. And I want to show what students, what kids usually think about in their heads. So 2.5 kilometers, and we're going in 5 minutes. And remember, we said unit rate, so that means that denominator has to be 1. So you're thinking probably of division, aren't you? Right? Because we want to basically be making that 5 minutes become 1 minute. Because unit rates have to have the denominator of 1. So you need to ask yourself, so how am I going to go and make 5 become 1? And you're probably thinking of dividing, so we need to divide this by 5 to do that. And if you do something to the bottom, you should probably do it to the top as well. And that's what you're kind of doing. And when you go and divide that by 5, you basically end up getting 0.5 kilometers. So basically it's half a kilometer in 1 minute, or per minute. That's kind of what you're going to be kind of going and doing there. So that's for a unit rate example. Let's just stick with the theme of Star Wars. This is the Math Jedi channel. Let's say there are let's say 45. So there are 45 male and 60 female Jedi. And I just want to know what's the ratio? So what's the ratio of girls to guys? Now I specifically said this for a reason, because I want to make a little note here, if you're paying attention. So my little note, little star, is order matters. So notice, what did I say? What's the ratio of girls to guys? So you have to write all of your ratios in what the word problem says. So you have to look and go and read it. Don't just go and blindly write down 45 to 60. It's not 45 to 60. It's actually 60 to 45. So you would write it down in that order. Girls, 2. Remember that? Remember the colon? It means 2. 45. Boom. Done. Are you done? No, because you remember what I said at the start here. Simplify. So you're going to simplify this. Now, if this looks a little bit confusing, remember this is the exact same thing as writing it as this, 60 over 45. If you got a really cool calculator, if you plug it into your calculator, like, I don't know, let's say you had a green calculator because you're in Mr. Douglas's math class, you could just type that into your calculator and it would just do it all for you. And you'd notice if you do that, the answer, your final answer is, so the ratio is 4 to 3. Simplified. And that just means for every 4 female, there are 3 male. So those are some really, really kind of basic questions that you hopefully see the idea of what a unit rate and using what a ratio is. Let's take a look at some other things. I want to involve a table. So I want to involve a table now. So let me get rid of this. And I'm going to go and draw a table. So let me just do a very, very kind of basic table. And I don't know, what should we do? Let's say you're building a Death Star, because, you know, that's what you do in the Star Wars universe. You blow a Death Star and you get it blown up. And let's say you are trying to figure out the cost. So Death Star building costs. That sounds appropriate, right? Do you ever wonder where the Emperor got all his money? No? Never? I do. I think they operate like on a feudal kind of tax system. So here it is, and we're going to put down, what are the two big things here? So the two big things are going to be obviously the cost. So how much it costs in dollars, right? Cost in dollars. And then the size. So square meters, so size. And we're going to use kind of square meters. Square meters. So that's what we've been kind of doing, is setting up. And let's go back to this really kind of ugly color here. And let's kind of set this up. So let's go, and I want to find the unit rate. So again, I want to find the rate. And this would be really helpful, and we'll get to this in a second, of kind of the real world application of this. So let's go and find the unit rate. And so what do we know? We know that for 25 square meters, it's going to cost you $100, 100 galactic dollars, let's say. And if you bump that up to 100, that would cost you then 400. And I'm using really easy numbers. And let's say you had a 400 square meter portion of the Death Star. That would cost you 1,600. And let's say you went really, really crazy. And let's say you had, I don't know, 1,000 square meters. Can you tell me how much that's going to cost? How much is that going to cost? How much is that going to cost? Okay, so I'm gonna also kind of figure that out. Maybe you've already done that in your head. You're like, I know the answer. So find the unit rate. The first thing is unit rates. So these rates, they're all consistent, aren't they? Have you noticed the pattern? So what are they all increasing by? They're all just basically, I'm just multiplying by 4. So if you take a look at that, I'm just basically multiplying by 4, aren't I? So what's 25 times 4? That 100. This. So we know what we probably know what the answer is. Like if you had to go and just kind of guess what that is, you'd probably say, "Oh, I think it's going to be $4,000." You know, and you would be correct. You'd be correct. But your math teacher is always going to ask you to show your work. I know students find that so frustrating. So this is what you'd have to go and show, basically, is that you have to say, so I want to know the unit rate. So do you want to know it this way? So the size over the cost. Or do you want to know it this way? Cost over the size. Remember, the order matters of how you say things. And let's just try it both ways. And you're going to get, technically you're right either way you do it. So let's go and do the size over the cost. And this is all consistent. So it doesn't matter which one you grab. So for this one, the size one, I'm going to go and just grab this, work with maybe the 100 and 400. So the size was 100 and the cost was 400. Remember, I'm going to simplify that. I'm going to divide both by 100. So it's 1 over 4. And this size was square meter. So it's 1 square meter per $4. Okay, so, okay. Let's try this one. Cost over the size now. Let's go and do 100. Oh, sorry. Oops, did I just do that wrong? Oh, no, I did that right. So the cost was 400. Sorry, 400. Here we go. I was looking at the wrong column. And over the size, which was 100. And now I get it of 4 over 1. So that was $4 per square meter. Now, which one should I use? Which one should I have used? Remember unit rates. What's the key for a unit rate? What does the bottom, the denominator, have to be? The denominator has to be a 1. So this is the way that you would do it. You would set up this way. Cost over size. Now notice that you're typically always making the smaller number be in the denominator, the smaller number. So the smaller number. So if you went and answered on a test this way, 1 square meter costs you $4, that's not technically what you would say. That wouldn't be 1 because your denominator is a 4. Now you're saying, well, maybe you reverse that. You say $4 per square meter. Well, there you go. That's what you're doing right here. So make sure you're kind of doing it that way. So it's $4 per square meter, 1 square meter. So do make sure that you're using basically the smaller number in your denominator and making sure your denominator is a 1. That's really, really important for that kind of stuff. Is that making sense, everybody? So a little bit of examples of how to use unit rates and using kind of like a ratio sort of thing and kind of figuring out that kind of stuff. So there we go. Let's just clear this off right now. Let's just go get rid of that one. Oh, there we go. And what else can we go and now use? Let's see. What's one other thing? Oh, there's some other stuff. A couple things with. I'm trying to think of all the common kid mistakes. So let's just go through a couple of KKMs. So I love pointing out common kid mistakes. Here we go. You shouldn't have fractions or decimals in a ratio. So you shouldn't have fractions or decimals in a ratio. That is definitely one of the things that I always tend to see an issue with, is kids leaving things with decimals. And I get it, because that's just no fun, going and changing that kind of stuff. So how do you go and do that? Well, let's just say you had something like this. So you had to simplify. So example, So I'm going to put down to simplify the ratio. Simplify. So simplify the ratio, and let's just say it's 2 1/3 to 4 1/2. So we're going to have to go and simplify that one. So how are you going to go and do that? What are you thinking here? So we're going to go and simplify that. As I open up my... So you have to remember that this is a dividing question. So when kids see this, they're like, where do I start? I don't understand what to do. Remember that this means to divide. So really, what you're kind of saying is 2 1/3 divided by 4 1/2. That's what you're going and doing. So that's not too bad, is it? So it depends on what you have for a calculator, right? So if you have a cool calculator, and I have a cool calculator, I'm literally pushing my calculator right now, because I love using my calculator. And what you would end up getting, so if you just did that on your calculator, you would get 14 over 27. And there, boom, that's your simplified version. That's your answer. So when you have fractions like this, make sure you're just going and dividing. Now that's not too bad to remember, is it? No, not at all. Another common kid mistake. What's another common kid mistake that I often see? Just note, for comparing more than two things, It's the same idea. Sometimes students get a little bit freaked out by this. It's the same. So it's the same. Whoop. So what do I mean by that? Let's just go get an example. Oops. There we go. Let's get rid of that. Ooh, there we go. So what do I mean by that? Let's just say you had an example of, I don't know, what's a good one? 18 to 26 to, I don't know, 14. There we go. So we're comparing that kind of stuff. So you're just going to go and basically try and find, you're finding the GCF. So find the GCF of those three numbers. Can you figure that out right now? Or I hope I made it pretty easy, right? The GCF is going to be 2. So you're going to go and just divide everything by 2. And what would you get then? So you got to go and simplify that. So it would be 9 to 13 to 7. And that would be your simplified version of that ratio. So do make sure, like for triples, you're doing the exact same thing. It's just more numbers. That's it, that's all. All right, hopefully a quick little intro into ratio and rate. Have a good day. Thanks all you math Padawans for sticking around and taking some amazing notes. Hopefully you've learned a little bit. Go check out some more videos on ratio and rates and proportions, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.